Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the Premier Radio Networks on Sunday, the 19th of May, 2019. This is episode 1593. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is brought to you by DigitalOcean. Deploy and scale your apps seamlessly on the simplest cloud platform. Join over 150,000 businesses that use DigitalOcean. Sign up today and get a free $100 credit at do.co/twit. And by Clear. Clear uses your eyes and fingertips instead of traditional ID documents to get you through security faster at airports and stadiums. For your first 2 months free, visit clearme.com/techguy and use a promo code TechGuy. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smart watches, all that jazz. 8888 Ask Leo. That's my phone number. If you have a question or comment or a suggestion, if you'd like to talk high tech, 888-827-5536. Toll free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. Don't tell anybody I wasn't here yesterday. We had a show in the can, recorded ahead of time. My daughter, I'm very proud of her, graduated from college yesterday, so I had to, you got to go to the commencement. Can't skip that. Can't miss that. So that was a great moment. And congratulations, Abby. And now I'm back in the saddle again. It was really interesting. One of the one of the commencement speakers was Joanna Hoffman, who is kind of legendary in computing. If you saw the Steve Jobs movie, you might remember her as the woman with the Russian accent who yelled at Steve Jobs a lot backstage. In fact, the only person really who was capable of getting Steve to do anything. She was a legendary marketer, and she wrote the business plan for Macintosh and created the market plan for it. Later went on to work at General Magic, where she was also responsible for basically not the engineering, but the business behind what was the first smartphone. Very early on, before really smartphones really made any sense, and that was probably the big problem with the smartphone in, what was it, 1997, 98, something like that. 10 years before Apple actually created the smartphone with the iPhone. So it was really great to hear her, but it was also really interesting to hear her. And increasingly, we're hearing this same sounds from a lot of people, especially older people in the tech industry, people who've been around for a while, saying things like to the graduates, don't pay any attention to social media. Don't let somebody else tell you who you are or how you should be. It's quite a drumbeat these days. Chris Hughes, one of the founders of Facebook, he was Mark Zuckerberg's roommate at Harvard. And right there from the very beginning, in fact, a lot of people credit him with the kind of social idea behind Facebook. Like, people assume, well, Mark probably wasn't super, he was kind of a geek. He wasn't super in tune with what people were interested in socially. But Chris was. Chris knew what people wanted. He recently wrote an editorial in the New York Times saying, Facebook should be broken up. Oh, what a mess. Facebook's bad for the republic. It's bad for people and other living things. It's an interesting time we live in, where the people who create technology are then saying, maybe we went too far. We went a little overboard. Maybe look around and face friends and family. Maybe that'd be a good idea. We're also seeing some negatives in technology. I just read a very interesting article, actually an excerpt from a book called Future Histories. What Ada Lovelace, Tom Paine, and the Paris Commune Teach Us About Digital Technology by Lizzie O'Shea. She excerpts it on a website called longreads.com, and that should tell you something. It's a long read. The excerpt alone is a long read, 8,000 words. But a fascinating story about the failings of technology, where actually technology doesn't do the job it was supposed to do. She talks about a professor at Harvard, LaTanya Sweeney, who Googled her name, as one does, right? And searching for an old paper she'd written or whatever, it doesn't matter. And she was shocked to see an ad pop up with the headline, LaTanya Sweeney, arrested? ? Maybe you've seen that. She doesn't have a criminal record, never did, but she clicked on the ad link, was taken to a website of a company, you probably know the company, that sells access to public records. She was so interested, she paid the fee and confirmed she had no criminal history, which she was pretty sure of. Then she asked a colleague of hers to do the same thing, and he didn't see that. Just, it's same ad for the company, but nothing about arrested. And what LaTanya Sweeney, Professor Sweeney, noted is that she's black and her colleague was white. So she did some research, and it turns out that if you're African American, the chances of that arrested ? Showing up is much higher than if you're not. And which is a kind of a bias, isn't it? But she also dug deeper to find out where that bias came from. And it comes from basically Google algorithms, Google ads. One of the things very popular in all technology these days is something called A/B testing. Sometimes it's ABCD testing, where you can, when you do a Google ad, you can buy a variation of the ad, as many as you want, and you don't want to do too many, and test how well each one works. And the algorithm over time tells you which ads get the most clicks. And apparently this is great for Google because your ads work better, they make more money. And it's great for the advertiser because if their ads work better, you make more money, but maybe not so good for the people whose names show up with arrested next to it. I have not done this for myself. I wouldn't be surprised. But what is interesting is the bias is it's not that Google is biased or that the advertiser is biased. It's that the way the algorithms are applied is biased. I guess shows the bias of the people clicking the ads, right? So who's responsible for that? How do you fix that? This is the same thing that shows up in Facebook time and time again. O'Shea, who wrote the book, suggests that it's really up to Google. It's Google's responsibility. Even though they didn't create the bias, they just created a technology that shows it up, an algorithm that shows it up. And that Google's responsibility going forward is to make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen with A/B testing. And by extension, Facebook and Twitter and all these other online companies have to be very, very careful. There's a wonderful data scientist named Cathy O'Neill who wrote a book called Weapons of Math Destruction, in which she talks about how many technologies generate their own reality. We assume that technology is fair and unbiased, but it isn't necessarily. And it maybe is a little bit more incumbent on the companies that create and use these technologies to be aware of that and to be careful not to do harm to people. And really, the two things I just mentioned have a lot to do with the new way of thinking about technology. Technology can be harmful to humans and other living things, even though it's not intentionally so. It's something we need to be aware of. What do you think? 8888 Ask Leo. We can talk about that. We can also talk about why your computer won't boot. I'm not, no bias here. And I've never been arrested. 8888 Ask Leo. The website where we put all this stuff is techguylabs.com. And I encourage you to use that during the week when I'm not here, because you don't have to write anything down as you're listening to the show. It will all be exposed on the website. Maybe that's not the best word. It'll all be available on the website if you go to techguylabs.com. It's the amazing Kimmy Schaffer. Kimmy don't take no Schaffer. Hello, Kim.
Hi.
Phone angel.
A little sleep deprived today.
Was it the thunder last night?
Oh, my God. 5:30 this morning.
We don't get thunder and lightning here in Northern California very often. It's really rare. Unlike I grew up back east, it was all the time, all summer.
Yeah.
But here, when you hear that, you think, is something going on?
Well, and some of them were strong enough to shake the house. I mean, it was. Yeah. This was not supposed to happen. My hot air balloon trip got canceled.
It did? Oh, yeah, because it was pouring yesterday.
So I'm not really
sorry.
happy with Mother Nature right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had timed the
irritated.
graduation at Dominican University at the same time as the balloon flight, and we thought, oh, this will be great, and we both got rained on.
And we both got rained on.
Oh,
well.
Sorry.
Such is life.
Sorry. When's the next
Burke
opportunity?
and John said, we're just glad you're alive.
Yeah, well, true. There was some pretty big hailstones involved. I don't think you'd want to be in a balloon in that.
Well, it wasn't. Yesterday morning at 5:30 in the morning was fine. I don't know if it would have got canceled, but we canceled in advance.
5:30 a.m. That's when you were supposed to do it?
You go, you do it really super
it's
early
a
in the morning.
sunrise balloon flight. Yeah, they want to do it before the winds pick up. Otherwise, you could end in Kansas. Like the Wizard of Oz. Who should I talk to?
Let's go to Don in Ashland, Oregon, looking for a web host company for his company or for the company he works for. Yeah, I had to ask him which Ashland, and it was the one I thought it was.
The home of the Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah.
Hey, Don. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Thanks, Kim.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. And yes, that's right. We're home of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival.
And a wonderful event. I've been to many times. Really love it.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And we also have university here, Southern Oregon University.
And it's a cute town. Ashland's great.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I work for a small publisher, and we have a website, that includes e-commerce and the ability to, registration. We have registration processes to allow subscribers to view articles, and people who aren't subscribers get to see the beginning of articles and, a prompt to subscribe. And we currently have a web hosting company, which we've had that for about 9 years now, and I've been pretty happy until the last 2 years, where I believe their support's declined a little bit. So I'm out looking for another web host.
Yeah, that happens. Most web hosts, most of the ones that, like 1+1, 1and1, and DreamHost and stuff, do it by scaling, putting a lot of people on one server. And so that's fine as long as they're very good about, starting new servers when it gets crowded, and no one company can take up too much bandwidth because you're all on shared bandwidth. And then sometimes what happens is, actually, I've had this years ago. We had a sponsor who did a great job in their advertising and grew so fast they couldn't keep up. And that can happen too. So I generally steer people towards the big companies that are designed for web sites. And there are two that come to mind, Squarespace.com and WordPress.com. WordPress is a sponsor, but Squarespace has been in the past. Both of them make it really easy. Both of them have extremely good policies in place because they're big. And one of the things you really want to watch out for these days, anytime you're on a shared host running on Intel machines, there's a big potential problem with security because of these flaws that really don't affect home users much, but Spectre, Meltdown, there's a new one called Zombie Load. These are all processor flaws with Intel chips, and where they're really risky is when you're on a shared machine, so that somebody could have a malicious process running on the same process as you. So it's really important to be with a company that has very high standards, is for security, is going to keep it up to date, going to have good service and support. And I can easily recommend both of those. There's a third one, of course, Google. It bought Blogger, and that's at blogspot.com. But I'm on WordPress.com. I really love them. They have all the tools you need. They have e-commerce. So does Squarespace. WordPress has free sites, but generally for something like this, you're going to pay. But they're not expensive.
Yeah, what we have right now, is a private managed server.
Oh, nice. So that avoids that whole issue of shared servers. So that's good. More expensive.
It's more expensive, but our primary concern is quick support.
Yes.
So
I can vouch for both of them, quick support. WordPress.com support is also WordPress enthusiasts and experts. So the support quality, I think, is very, very good.
Yeah, what we need is phone support as well.
Yep.
So that if our system's being attacked, I can call somebody and immediately get a response.
So, we're, the Tech Guy website does not run on WordPress. It runs on, very much like yours, it runs on a private, dedicated server, actually a number of servers, managed servers. So there's a company managing it for security. That's much more expensive. But if you're a company and, all of this is important, then it's worth the cost, right?
Yeah, we pay $400 a month right now, and that's not a problem. I mean, because if the server goes down, then customers may call.
That's right. You lose business. Yeah. No. In a business, it's important. So that then at that tier, then it's another matter entirely. For a long time, we were on SoftLayer, which is an IBM company out of Texas. They have managed servers. They have private servers just like yours. My experience of the support was it was very good, but I haven't been on them in a few years. But I wouldn't hesitate to recommend them either. I think they're very good. SoftLayer.com, and now they got acquired by IBM, and I imagine that has helped them with resources. So that's a different level than somebody just wants to create a website. If you have already had a managed private server, that's probably what you're looking for.
Yeah, so we'd want to. I've gone to a number of sources like. Let's see, web hosting talk.
Okay, so the problem when you're doing this kind of research, you're going to come up with a lot of sites that aren't editorially independent. In many cases, the listings are paid for listings. They get money if they get a finder's fee if you subscribe. It's very, there are, and you've noticed this if you Google, best web hosting, you'll find 100 of these sites. And it's hard to know which ones are independent editorially. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I noticed that on a couple of places I wanted. It said right there, click here, you get 60% off, and by the way, we get a commission.
Yeah, and those are, by the way, the clean ones. Those are the good ones that tell you. There are plenty that don't. They're supposed to. FTC says you have to, but good luck. There's no policing. So that's it. It's tough. It's tough to go on the web and find a good site. I would look around, talk to customers. This is an important thing. You're not going to move. You don't want to move more than once, and you don't want to go through what you're going through now, which is a lack of support. You don't want to get to the point where this company just kind of shines you on. So I don't have a lot of recommendations because we use a variety of things. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. But like I said, SoftLayer was good. What we do now is a very complicated thing. We have multiple hosts. It's a much more complicated and probably overcomplicated solution for you because we have a back end that's running on Drupal. And
we have Drupal now.
Oh, you're a Drupal. Oh, now that's another thing.
If you leave Drupal.
Oh, you don't want Drupal.
Oh, we may leave. We don't know.
I think so now I can recommend some because there's some very good Drupal hosting companies that are managed. And we just moved. John, do you know who we moved to? Does anybody let me look at my email because we just moved.
Actually, I looked at I checked at whoishostingthis.com and I looked at Tech Guy Labs and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's because it's complicated. So the site is often so we have a back end that's running Drupal, but then we have a front end that's running on Node.js. Those are on different servers serving companies. We have an extremely, I want to say sophisticated, but it's probably just complicated setup that our very, very talented IT guys set up. So
we're lucky. We have a couple good programmers.
Yeah, that's nice.
Developers.
If you like Drupal and they're comfortable with Drupal,
we're not super happy with Drupal. One of our developers thinks that we spend more to Drupalize than it would be if we just stayed as regular LAMP site, Linux, Apache, PHP.
Well, Drupal runs on LAMP, so this is important to make this distinction. You're going to need a content management system, unless your pages are static. I don't know, are they static?
No.
So you're going to need a content management system. What that does is it's a program like Drupal or Joomla or WordPress, there's lots of them, that take a database of content and merge it with files of talk that are the formatting, and they do it every time somebody comes to the page. They're what we call dynamic pages because it's changing. They, your price list, your authors, all that stuff's changing. So that's in a database. And so what manages that is a CMS, a content management system. So when you talk about WordPress or Drupal, those are CMSs. And almost all of them run on LAMP. That's Linux, Apache, PHP, and the database, which nowadays
MySQL.
Well, it used to be MySQL. Nowadays, it's very often Postgres or Maria. Yeah, but that will depend on your CMS. But LAMP, LAMP is that, and MariaDB is also an M. But that's not a content management system. Then you have to ask, okay, smarty pants, we're running on LAMP, but what's the CMS? What's the content management system? Because unless you're writing your own, which I do not recommend.
Nope.
So you have to have something. Both Drupal and WordPress are written in PHP. That's the P in LAMP. But you have to have something that's doing all of that management. We used to be on Black Mesh, and I think we moved. We used to be on Black Mesh, Keith 512, and I actually like Black Mesh, but I think we recently moved. Let me look at my email. Yeah, you need somebody who really knows what they're talking about here. We do a lot of, not me, in other words. We do a lot of research on this stuff, and my people come to me and they say, well, here are the pros and cons. And let me just see. We use Contigix to manage our servers. Heroku is the front end, and we used to be on Black Mesh, but I don't know if we're still on Black Mesh. Black Mesh was quite good. They are a Drupal house, though. So
okay.
So that's the thing is, you're going to want to pick, if it's a managed server, you're going to want somebody who knows the CMS you're using. So I think you go back to your tech guys and you say, okay, right, yeah, sure, LAMP, that's right. We're on LAMP right now. What's the CMS? Sam Abuelsamid is our car guy, principal researcher at Navigant. He is an expert in all things automotive, and he's back from his jaunt in the new Audi e-tron. I see it behind you.
Yeah, it was really good. I was really quite pleasantly surprised by it. We had a chance to drive it this week from Napa up to Sacramento and then over to Tahoe, and learned quite a bit about this vehicle. It's a new midsize electric crossover. Interestingly,
is this Audi's first all-electric?
It is their first mass-produced all-electric. They've shown several concepts over the last 10 years, starting with a concept about 10 years ago that was the first one with the e-tron name. That was kind of like the R8 sports car.
Yeah, very high-end,
that one never
expensive.
went into production.
Yeah.
But this is their first mass-produced one, and the first of many. They expect that by 2025, about 30% of all of their sales will be fully electric vehicles. So they're really making a significant shift over to electric.
We should point out that some of this is related to Dieselgate, right?
Certainly, I think the pace at which they're making the change now is definitely a result of Dieselgate and things like Volkswagen's investment in the Electrify America charging.
I mean,
network.
I don't think that's a bad thing. They've learned their lesson. They're doing their penance, and they're going to save the world by eliminating fossil fuels.
Yeah, I mean, development of this stuff started before Dieselgate happened, but it's certainly they're increasing the pace of this.
Good.
And the Electrify America charging network is kind of interesting, especially for this vehicle. We had a chance to at our lunch stop. We had a chance to top up the batteries in our vehicles, and they showed us some data on the actual charging rates on these things. So most EVs support DC fast charging. So you can they're all at least 50 kilowatts charging rates. Tesla's superchargers, current generation superchargers, are about 120 kilowatts.
Ooh, that's really fast. Okay, so that's and more kilowatts means faster charging.
Yeah, so that's basically, it's kind of like how many gallons per minute you're putting of fuel into your tank, the equivalent of that. The version 3 supercharger that Tesla announced a couple of months ago, but which isn't actually available yet. There's, I think, one prototype station out there, supports up to 250 kilowatts. But the thing about all these fast charging stations is, in order to protect the battery, once the battery gets to a certain state of charge, they start ramping down the charge rate. So they slow it down so you don't overcharge the battery and you don't overheat the battery. And with the version 3 superchargers that go to 250 kilowatts, they actually only stay there for a very short period of time, like when the battery's up to about 15% charged. So from 0 to about 15% charged, it's at 250, and then it starts to ramp down. And by the time it's up to 50% charged, so half a charge, you're down to under 150 kilowatts. And
so it slows down, but it protects the battery, which is important.
It protects the battery.
Yeah.
What Audi has done, with the Electrify America stations, they support 150 kilowatt charging right now, and when the Porsche Taycan arrives, they'll be turned up to 350. But the e-tron supports 150. But because Audi's done some really aggressive temperature management on the battery pack, they're able to keep that charging rate up there at 150 kilowatts all the way up to almost 80% charge.
So that's how fast to get that 80%.
So you can get from 0 to 80% in under 30 minutes.
Nice. Go have lunch, and you'll be ready to go.
And then even after it starts to ramp down, it's still, because they're doing such a good job of the temperature control, it's still charging much faster than any other DC fast charger out there. So, at 80% charge, a supercharger is only giving you about 30 kilowatts, and you're still getting 150 from the Electrify America charger. And even we were watching it, even as we were at 98% charge, it was still pumping in 57 kilowatts, which is faster than the peak for a BMW i3 or a Nissan Leaf or most other EVs. So it's really very fast charging all the way through, and you don't really have to think too much about, okay, I want to get my battery down so I get the maximum charge rate in there. You just, whenever you need to charge it, you can charge it.
Well, that's great. And how did it drive? Did it feel good?
Yeah, it drives really well. If you like driving an Audi, which
I do, I drive an A8.
It's a very, very nice experience. Very smooth ride. It's exceptionally quiet. There's like almost no wind noise at all in this vehicle,
which is cool because you don't have a lot of engine noise either.
Right. What Audi did with this vehicle is, rather than trying to directly challenge the Tesla Model X, and doing ludicrous mode and things like that, they tried to make it as much like an Audi as, what Audi customers want in a car, except it's electric. And so it's got, very nice interior finishings, great materials and fit and finish. It's very quiet, rides really well. It handles surprisingly well. We drove up Sage Canyon Road out to Sacramento, and, for a vehicle that weighs over 5,500 pounds, it handles remarkably well. One of the interesting details inside, Audi, in your A8, you've got that MMI control knob on the dashboard. They don't use a touchscreen. The e-tron is their first Audi to adopt a touchscreen display, but it's not like your typical, tapping on your iPad or in your Tesla, where you just tap on things and it responds. It's actually more like it's got haptic feedback, and it behaves more like current Apple trackpads on the MacBooks. So
you feel the click.
Yeah, you actually have to press a little bit. So it's like pressing a button, and you get that feedback. So it feels like you're pressing a switch, except there's it's obviously just a sheet of glass there, which takes a little bit of getting used to. And because it's still a touchscreen, you still have to look at it to it's not like
that's the
reaching
risk,
over
of course,
twisting the knobs.
Does it have voice assist as well?
It does, yeah. It does have voice control. It has built-in or Madam A, right in the infotainment system. So you just press the voice button.
Not Apple's CarPlay or Android Auto.
It has CarPlay and Android Auto support as well.
It's kind of got everything.
Yeah, so you've got everything covered in there. So you got Siri, you got Google Assistant if you want it, or you have Madam A. Just press the voice button on the steering wheel, and you can use any of your regular Madam A commands just like you would with an Echo at home.
Wow. So Is this one of those cars where if you have to ask how much it costs, you can't afford it?
I mean, it's not cheap, but it's not ridiculously expensive. The starting
Teslas
price
are often, by the time you load them up, over $100,000. They're expensive.
Yeah, no, this one, the e-tron starts, the base model is the Premium Plus trim. It starts about $75,000.
Okay, so it's in that ballpark.
Prestige is 81.
Yeah.
And that, the Prestige, you basically have all the options. Like there's a few other options available. And then you still have the full $7,500 tax credit available on this, the federal tax credit.
Because they just started. They haven't used up their allotment. So this is the good news is we're now going to start seeing more and more traditional car manufacturers make credible offerings in this electric field. I'm excited about that because I like driving electric.
Yeah, no, we've got a lot of interesting mainstream models, like we talked about the Niro before, and the Hyundai Kona EV, and you've got some premium models like the e-tron, the Jaguar I-Pace, the upcoming Porsche Taycan. So there's a lot of great choices for electric vehicles now.
Sam Abuelsamid, he is the car guy, principal researcher at Navigant Research, and always a welcome guest on our shores. Thank you, Sam, for that report. You can read all about it at his website, by the way. We should add your website to the lower third, except it's probably too long to fit in.
Yeah.
It's samabuelsamid.com.
That's my personal website. Stuff like this is...
Somebody said that this is posted on your website, though.
No, it's posted on Forbes.
Oh,
but I'll link to it from
that.
my website.
I'll mention Forbes then.
I dropped the link is in the chat. I'll drop it in there again.
Nice. I did see that go by. Okay, cool. Okay. Really good.
And we also talked about it on wheel bearings this week as well.
Nice. I'll mention that as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's a little pricey, but it's a high-end Audi. I mean, it's comparable to an A8.
Yeah, and it's not out of line with with a Q7 or Q8. With their other SUVs.
Yeah.
And we're going to start seeing more lower end stuff. They at the Shanghai show earlier this spring they announced the Q4 e-tron, which is a smaller one.
When will that be out?
Sometime next year, I believe.
Okay, so they're really ramping up fast.
Yeah,
that's amazing. It's cool.
Yeah, they're going to have a bunch of stuff over the next couple of years.
It's really cool. It's exciting.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
Impressed by how fast it charged. I mean, that was the thing that really blew me away.
And those are going to be pretty common everywhere, these new Electrify America chargers?
Yeah, there'll be almost 500 of them by July 1st.
What?
Across the country.
Wow.
There's one just down the road from you. I forget where it is now, towards Mill Valley. But before you get there, there's two in Sacramento. So there's a bunch of them in the Bay Area, or there will be over the next couple of months.
Good news.
In the next 3 years, there will be 2,000 Electrify America stations.
Wow, that's really important. I think one of the reasons I bought a Tesla is because of the superchargers.
Right,
and I waited until there was one in Petaluma.
Yeah,
so, not that I ever use it, but it's nice to know it's there.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, most people are going to buy something like this. They're going to have a place to park it, and it actually comes with a home wall charger. So you get one. It's bundled in the front trunk, and you just hang it up on the wall in the garage. If you've got a NEMA 1450 outlet in your garage, you can just plug it in. You're good to go.
Nice.
And if you don't, they have a deal with Amazon to connect you with certified installers.
So they're being very serious about all this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How exciting! Yeah, I haven't yet used the Beats Pros, but Megan's used them, and I've talked to her, and also Lori Gill and Renee. It's $100 more than the AirPods. They don't fall out as easily because they have an over-the-ear hook, and of course they have that Beats sound, which is a bump at about 100 hertz and about 250, I think, to give it that nice deep bass. But everybody reports they sound very good. The AirPods are not high-quality headphones, So if you want better headphones with the AirPods features, I guess and you can afford an extra $100. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo. Line 3 is, I can barely read it. I have to get my spectacles on. Dave in Rochester, New York. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Leo.
Welcome.
Thank you. Kim was nice enough to recycle one of my calls they made during the week to your station, and she said you're running a little low on your customer or caller. So, the question I've got, because I'm a huge listener, I mainly listen to your podcast.
Nice. Thank you.
Conducive to when I'm working out.
Yeah. On demand is always great. I like live. Like, it's fun to watch Game of Thrones when everybody else is watching it. But on the other hand, maybe you're not around exactly at that time. So that's why I like on demand, yeah.
Sure. Well, I have two different locations. One primarily that I have been streaming, and everything works fine with that. But the thing I'm thinking about doing is, do you have some slight competitors that allow their podcast to be downloaded? I was trying to do a little investigation, and it appears, from what I found so far, that your technical people do not allow that.
No, that's not true.
It is not.
Are you trying to watch on YouTube?
Well, what I have been doing is I've been going to your, not Twix.
The website?
Yeah, your
Twit.tv. Yeah, and all our shows, that's what makes a podcast. So understand that even when you're streaming audio or video, you're downloading it. The only question is what happens at the end. Do you have a file, or is it just kind of evaporating? Is it just saved to a temp spot? Yeah. But all of our shows are intended to be downloaded fully. So I'm not sure. So you're doing it from the website twit.tv?
Correct.
Yeah. Right-click and save as, I guess.
But still from that same website?
Yeah. I'm sure that works. There should be a download button, too. I don't know. I haven't looked in a while. Generally, if you listen to a show regularly, the best thing to do is to use a podcast application, and there's lots of them. Find the show, and then there'll be a subscribe button somewhere, depending on the interface. When you subscribe to a podcast, say you use Apple's podcasts or Google's podcasts, or there's Pocket Cast, Overcast, Stitcher, Slacker. Generally, when you subscribe, what happens, and this is kind of the best part about podcasting, is we have what we call a feed, which is a text file that's updated whenever there's a new show. The podcast application periodically checks that file, and as soon as it sees a new show, it says, great, and downloads it. So when you subscribe, make sure auto download's turned on to any of our shows, but the Tech Guy's a good one. I happen to like that one. When you subscribe to that one, it'll download as soon as we put it up. So then you have it on your phone or your device. Do you listen? What kind of device do you listen to?
Basically, it's just a smartphone.
Smartphone, okay. So is it Android or iOS?
Android.
So I'm a big fan of Pocket Casts. That's an excellent one. There's also, let's see, there's a new one that everybody loves, and I've forgotten the name of it, but I think it's Downcast. I think that's it. So you can choose those and pick the one you like, and then you can search, and almost every podcast that is made will be in their directory. Certainly all of the Twit podcasts, including the Tech Guy, will be in the directory. Okay. So Podcast Addict, somebody's saying they really like it. There's Podcast Republic. There's kind of an infinite number of these. They're pretty easy to write. And Google has its own podcasts app, which I think Google's a little funny. I think they only recently added the ability to subscribe in the Google podcast. I'm not sure, but Google Podcast is a very good one as well.
So no Wi-Fi connection?
Well, you'll have to be on, you need data. So
I mean, but for the follow-on later, you're saying there's
no, then it's on your phone, and you can listen at any time, even if you're in airplane mode. Absolutely.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, just knowing that it's capable,
right-click and save as. I agree, that's not ideal. We spent that Twit site. We spent $250,000 on it before we ran out of money, and we didn't get to do all of the things we wanted to. And it would have been nice to maybe have a download button, but right-click. Yeah. So if you click it, what happens? It'll start playing. It is actually downloading. But if you right-click and say download, what it's doing is saying, and after you've done, download the whole thing, and then we can listen at our leisure. There used to be some very good apps on iOS and Android. Unfortunately, we don't do our own apps, and the guys who did got real jobs, and their employers said, "Okay, you can't work on your hobby anymore," and so those have kind of disappeared.
How do I right-click though with a smartphone?
Oh, yeah, on your phone it's different. I think it's press and hold. But, don't use a website. That's probably the biggest issue. Don't use the website. Just use a podcast application to do it. Yeah.
You got a second? I got one more.
Yeah, for somebody listening to my show on the podcast, you'll bet.
Well, thanks to you, this was quite a few podcasts ago, I kind of experimented with the Google Voice phone service.
Nice. What'd you think?
Okay. Well, we're speaking on it now.
Oh, it sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, very, very good.
Yeah.
But this is the fun question. A while back, I went from my traditional landline, twisted copper pair, to one of my. It was a Time Warner at that point. Voice over IP service. Okay.
Yep.
And when I made that change, my alarm system, I did have to call.
That's right.
My vendor, and they says, well, you may have to play. There's some pauses and I think number symbols or something you have to add to the dialing. Okay. And I was, after playing around with that, I was able to make the change over to Time Warner successfully.
Good.
And then now, but I've since your suggestion with Google Voice, I've switched to the VoIP from them.
Yeah.
But now, of course, now the dialer doesn't work again. Do you think, in your opinion, it's just a matter of playing with the pauses? And
I'm actually kind of surprised that worked. That was the recommendation. Yeah, commas or pauses, right? When you put those in a number, I'm not sure. The alarm company must have some more complicated thing going on that I don't really understand. Sometimes with Google Voice, this does happen. Some services don't see Google Voice as POTS, as plain old telephone service, and won't work. In fact, I know a lot of alarm companies don't like internet plans because they perhaps rightly assume they're not as reliable as plain old telephone service. You don't really have plain old telephone service with Spectrum either. When you went to their solution, it's a pure VoIP solution. Sometimes they put a battery in your garage, but my experience has been they never look at it again. I would ask your alarm company, what are the options here? They may say, for a small fee, we'll set you up with cellular, which is that's what we use at home, I think. We initially had to get a dial-up line just for them, which was kind of annoying, but because I did not have dial-up. I had no phone service in the house. So that's going to be really up to the alarm company and what they're doing. Yeah, try some more pauses, but it may well be they don't work with Google Voice, and that's the question you need to ask them.
Huh. Because I don't know if your local 911 office allows this.
Well, that's another issue. With all VoIP services, unless they have an interface to the plain old telephone service, they're going to use something called E911, which is a regional 911. And some VoIP services will, and I think Google Voice is one of these, will announce in big, bold letters, this is not a substitute for 911. There is no 911 on this service. And so the FCC has started to require, I think, the addition of an E911, but that is a big issue. If you want to make sure 911 works, really, the best thing to do is have a landline, because that's when 911 knows exactly where you are, and they can tell from the landline. I think VoIP with security systems, not ideal. VoIP with 911, really not ideal. This is where, sad to say, the landline still wins. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smartwatches, the drill, all that jazz. 8888, Ask Leo's the phone number, 888-827-5536. Toll free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. If you have a VoIP service and you're outside that area, you can still reach us if you can call phone numbers. Just call that number. It's toll free. Shouldn't cost you anything at all. 888-827-5536. We do have a great website, which is there for your enjoyment. There's no charge, no cost, no sign up. All you have to do is go to techguylabs.com. If you hear anything on the show and you want to know more, that's the place to go. You can even leave comments if you have a suggestion, a better idea. Let's see, moving right along. We go to line 2, Len in San Diego. Hello, Len.
Hi, Leo. I've been a listener since the old days at KFI when Jeff Levy went away, and then you were there.
Thank you. That's 2004 that happened. 15 long, miserable... No, they were happy years ago. That's a long time, especially in technology. 15 years is like a century.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
So anyhow, I'm a podcast listener too, but I listen to mine through my Echo mostly.
I think that's such a revolution for podcasters. It's awesome because you just talk to your Echo. You say, hey, you can say literally, you can say, Echo, listen to the Tech Guy podcast, and it'll play the latest version. Yeah. Yeah,
that's exactly what I say. When I go to bed at night, I put it on. And
I put you to sleep every night?
Just about. Or one of the...
5 minutes into the show. Well, I'm glad. That's great. I'm honored.
So I also listen to a morning show from Cleveland, Ohio, back where I'm from.
Isn't that great? What a this is so great. You can hear, radio from all over the world.
Exactly. I can't think of a better device that I've ever bought than that.
Yeah. What's the morning show you like?
It's called Rover's Morning Glory.
Rover's Morning Glory. And they have a podcast.
Yes, they do.
Nice.
They have a video cast also. But the odd thing is, if I listen to the show live in the morning, I can hear the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I can also go and request at night when I go to bed, I can say, play Rover's Morning Glory.
Right.
And the podcast will start.
Yeah.
But it will never run more than 20 minutes. It'll run.
Yeah. So that's the radio station. And a lot of radio stations do that. I've been very fortunate that the owners of the Tech Guy show, at first KFI, as you said, and then now it's owned by KFI's parent company, Premier, which syndicates it, that they've always let us make a podcast of the entire show. The only thing we can't put in, just because we don't have the music rights, is the bumper music. But everything else is in there. A lot of radio stations were concerned that if you could get the podcast, you wouldn't listen to it live. And so often, podcasts from radio stations are truncated a little bit, like it's the highlights, the best of, because they want you to listen live. There's another issue, and I think that's where it all comes down to, is advertisers. Do they have the advertisements in the podcast?
They have local advertisements in the podcast.
Yeah, so that's part of the problem, is that a local company in Cleveland doesn't really care if you're listening in San Diego because you can't buy that widget from them. You're not a potential customer. And so they sometimes complain. That's, by the way, why the radio station wants you to listen on the radio. They want you to hear the local ads as a local person. Remember, the other thing about podcasts is the economics of it. Unlike a radio show, when Rovers goes up, it's over the transmitter and the tower. And if one person listens or 100 million people listen, it wouldn't cost them any more. But a podcast, you're downloading it, and potentially every single download costs them something. So that's podcasting is more like magazines. So radio and TV, doesn't cost them anything. But magazines and newspapers, they got to print them, and each subscriber costs them a little bit of money to make that copy of that magazine or newspaper. It's the same thing with podcasts. Now, it doesn't cost us a lot, but every time you download the Tech Guy, even if you're listening on Amazon's Echo, it's downloading it from a server. We use a company called CashFly, and it costs a little bit of money. And we have a deal with CashFly to spread it out and all that, but it costs a little bit of money. And so that's another reason radio stations might have shorter versions. They may even try to have versions that are supported by national advertisers or even international advertisers so that they can make some money off of it, that kind of thing. I guarantee you the Cleveland businesses don't pay to be in the podcast.
Well, at least I'm glad to know that it's not something wrong.
It's not you. It's not you.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, there probably are stations that offer the Tech Guy podcast as well, and their version might be different than the one we offer just because of their own economics. It's all about economics. We add on when you listen to Tech Guy on the podcast, you'll hear different ads. You don't hear the local radio station ads. You don't hear the national ads. You hear ads for people who bought the podcast. And that's
right.
So that makes sense if you think about it, because that's how it gets paid for.
All right. Well, thanks, Leo. You've helped again.
Well, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I appreciate it.
Well,
I'm glad I could put you to sleep. The Rovers probably doesn't put you to sleep. They wake you up.
That's right.
Yep.
and that's on a station that's been there for a long time called the Buzzard.
Oh, the Buzzard is a legend. You bet. I know the Buzzard. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great market Cleveland is. Yeah, great radio market. Yeah. Nice to talk to you.
Not a great place to live, but a good radio market.
They call it the mistake by the lake, right?
They sure do.
I like Cleveland. I had relatives in Shaker Heights, and I always thought, that's not nice. Cleveland's a very nice place.
One of the few cities to ever have a river catch fire.
Yes, but they've fixed that up, right?
Yes, they did. Now it's all been brought up to date, and it's kind of an entertainment center.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame some years ago, and I thought it was gorgeous, just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland rocks. Nice to talk to you. Take care, Len.
Nice to talk to you, too.
My pleasure. Yeah. Yeah, anytime you want to know about podcasting, I know an awful lot about podcasting, because going back to 2004, we started podcasting this show. Again, thank you, KFI, for letting us. And we were one of the first podcasts of all podcasts. I think there were a handful of us back in the fall of 2004 when it was first getting started. And since then, I've built a business around it. We have quite a few podcasts now, all technology related. They're for the real geeks, but they're all at the website, which is This Week in Tech is the mothership podcast, and that's at twit.tv. If you want to hear more. Yeah, so anytime you want to know about podcasts, I'm the old man of podcasting. It's not that old, so I guess I'm not that old either. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo. I promise not to shout, because I know you're all going to sleep. Shh. Listening late at night to the podcast, the soothing sounds of iPhones and iPods. Michelle in Thousand Oaks, Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Yes, I've been trying. I listen to you when I walk my dog in the park.
Nice. So you don't fall asleep. You're exercising.
Right. Saturday and Sunday is Leo Laporte Day, and walk my dog.
Yay! Your dog must love me.
Yeah, he's getting a little older now.
Aww.
And his hearing is going down, so doesn't hear so well. But it's raining here today, and I'm trying to find a site that does not say .secure to watch you live.
Oh. Well, I certainly hope our site's secure. So we stream live to a variety of places, including YouTube, which ought to be secure. But if you go to twit.tv, remember I mentioned the podcast network is TWIT, This Week in Tech. So if you go to twit.tv/live, that's where we put all the different places we stream live versions of the show, audio and video. It's on Twitch, which is a Amazon mostly gaming streaming service, but we're on it. So it can't be all gaming. That's twitch.tv. We're on Mixer, which is Microsoft's, Ustream, which is IBM's. We're on YouTube Live.
Ustream says not secure.
Well, don't go to Ustream. Go to twit.tv/live. And you just click the play button. But if you want to change it to a different source, I wonder why Ustream says it's not live and not secure.
Well, I was surprised because I've used it in the past, many years ago.
I'm looking, and I don't, at least on twit.tv/live, I don't see insecure. You might. In fact, I'm hearing you come back now. You might try. First of all, check to make sure that your browser's up to date, that the clock on your computer has correct time and date. So the reason we call things secure and insecure, and actually this is a really good thing to talk about. Sites nowadays, almost all of them, and if Google has its way, every site in the world will eventually be serving itself securely using HTTPS.
Right.
And the way that works is the site applies for a certificate from a certificate authority. There are certain approved certificate authorities. They go there, they pay some money. For instance, my twit.tv, we went to, I think we got our certificate from DigiCert, but there's many of these. But anyway, they get this certification and they put it on their page. The certification, as you would expect, has both a start date and an end date. If the date on your computer is off, it could predate the start date, which means the certificate would be seen as invalid, and that's when you'd get that error. If they forgot to update their certificate, which happens from time to time, even with some big boys, it happened recently with the U.S. government because of the shutdown. They hadn't renewed their certificates, and a number of big government sites were suddenly said, you got that error. This is an insecure site because they didn't renew the certificate. So that's kind of how it works. You definitely, if you get that warning, you want to pay attention to it. Most of the time, it's merely that they didn't update it or there's something else wrong. Maybe your browser's out of date because your browser is the kind of the definer of what's secure and insecure. So it will look at that certificate and see if it matches what it expects. So if the browser's out of date, it may have some problems too. What do you use? What do you use?
I'm a Mac OS Mojave 10.4.
Oh yeah, an Apple updates Safari, and you're using Safari?
Yes.
Apple updates Safari regularly. There is an older site that we also offer for compatibility purposes, live.twit.tv. And when you go there, in the browser, you might see not secure. That just doesn't mean it's insecure. It means it's not using HTTPS.
Oh, okay.
That's okay, as long as you're not giving it a credit card or anything important.
I don't do those sort of things.
The reason that Google wants everything to use HTTPS is a little bit technical and obscure. And it involves something that has one of the best names in technology, a man-in-the-middle attack. And that's almost as good as the evil maid attack, which is another thing I'll describe someday. But the man, which is also a security term, the man-in-the-middle attack would be somebody pretending to be, let's say, Amazon, intercepting your traffic, putting up a page that looks like Amazon, but it isn't Amazon. Or somebody that, in fact, does send you to Amazon, but watches as you enter credit card numbers and stuff. That's a man in the middle, observing the traffic and usually maliciously. So if you have a certificate and the certificate comes from the site you're visiting, that's a guarantee there's no man in the middle. The certificate says you are talking, if let's say it's Amazon, you are talking to Amazon, and I can prove it because I have the certificate. If you're in a browser, usually there's a little padlock or something to click that will tell you about this. I'm looking at Chrome, and there's a padlock next to the name, and it says connection is secure, and then there's a link that says certificate valid, and you can click that, and it will say who it's been issued to. And that's the thing you want to do. Some businesses and internet service providers will look to be secure, but really what's happening is you have a secure link to them, and then they're actually doing what we call a man in the middle, not maliciously most of the time, but potentially. In your business, for instance, they just want to make sure you're not doing anything illegal or inappropriate. If it's your internet service provider, they might be doing it to see what you do so they can sell that to somebody else. That's snooping. Generally not malicious. But you can tell because if you look at their certificate, it will say, instead of Amazon, it'll say the name of your company, or it'll say the name of your internet service provider. So if you really want to make sure you have a direct, secure connection to a site, click that little padlock, look at the certificate, and make sure it's issued to the same site that you're on. That is more than you ever wanted to know, and I apologize.
No, that's perfectly all right.
I think it's important that people understand this. It's way too complicated, but it is.
No, I've looked at it.
Good. So you know.
Right.
Nice.
But I'm still behind. I started at 50. I got a computer saying I didn't want to be left behind. But I find myself being left behind, like with the Echo, Roku, and then having your Apple TV.
No one, no matter their age, can keep up, Michelle. You don't think anybody is keeping up, do you?
No, I know they don't.
People working at Facebook say, boy, I wish I knew more about how Apple works. I mean, it's just normal because it's all moving way too fast for anybody to keep up with. It sounds like you're doing pretty well. I'm impressed.
I work at it.
Well, it's fun, isn't it? I mean, does it feel like painful work?
No. I enjoy snooping around what I can find, and then I have to document it so I don't forget it.
Brilliant. You know how good this is for
my
your
memory is not what it should be.
But you're doing something really good for your brain, aren't you?
I should hope so.
Yeah. I know it, because learning, whatever your age, when you're learning, you're keeping those neurons firing. You're making new connections. We know that's good for you.
So I keep connected to Leo Laporte.
Good job. I appreciate it. You know, it's good for me too. It's one of the perils of doing what I do is people call and ask a question and I don't know the answer. And so as a result, I'm constantly paranoid, thinking I better learn that, I better find that out, I better read that. That's good. That keeps me learning too. So we'll stay young together. How about that, Michelle?
Absolutely. I enjoy your camera work too.
Oh, thank you. I do it myself, you know. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Doing the control zoom that you can do on, yeah, that worked. So I'm clicking the padlock. Connection is secure. Your information, for example, password, blah, 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 notifications, blah, 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 blah. And then here's the cert. And it says valid, but it's not a bad idea, and it even shows the details, to click on it and read a little bit more. This is a pretty nice display. It actually has a little blue ribbon. So the root certificate authority, and that has to be, you know, one that's approved by your browser, is GoDaddy. And you see, the reason it costs so much for us is because it's a wildcard cert. See that star.twit.tv? So because it's a wildcard cert, it's a lot more expensive than, because it, you know, if you just got www.twit.tv, it'd be a lot cheaper. So this is all the information. And so the thing to know about certs is it's actually public key crypto. And that's what this is, RSA encryption. It also will have a not valid before and not valid after date. That's really important, because if your clock is wrong and your computer thinks it's the year 1970, that's not going to work. Here's the public key info. There's a lot of information in here that you don't need to know, but, you know, it's available. Tell you, our show today brought to you by DigitalOcean. I love me some DigitalOcean. You know, if you are learning web technologies, or you've got a startup and you want to create a minimum viable product so that your investors can see it, or maybe you've got a business and you just want to, you know, have a site that has a lot of power, a lot of flexibility, and doesn't cost a lot, you've got to know about DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is the modern way to create a server. You can easily run production applications with DigitalOcean. They're going to say, this is the buzzwords, a scalable compute platform. A server. But it can scale, and you can add all sorts of features like storage, security, monitoring capabilities. At no additional cost, you get cloud firewalls, monitoring and alerts, team accounts, full DNS management, 4 nines uptime SLA. And they have data centers all over the world, 12 global data centers, so you can use one that's close to you. Great support, 24/7, 365 days a year. Launch in the cloud and scale as you grow, whether you're running one virtual machine or 10,000. I'm just, you know, as I'm learning Node.js or TypeScript, or, you know, as I'm learning web technologies, I love to spin up a server. You can do it in less than a minute. That's so awesome. It's ready. It's got a public IP address. It's got an SSH login. It even has a marketplace for one-button applications. So if you want a Node.js server, it's trivial to set it up. Supports Docker and Kubernetes too. So you can pretty much do anything that you would do on the internet, you can do on DigitalOcean. And I always set it up with the cheapest, you know, it's $5 a month. So it's inexpensive for me to run. Great way to, and then as I need more CPUs, more memory, more bandwidth, it's easy to scale it up to. DigitalOcean's marketplace allows, or has many, many one-click applications: LampStack, LempStack, Docker, GitLab, Jenkins, Plesk, cPanel, WordPress. It's very easy to set up whatever you need in under a minute. Secure and control traffic to your applications with your own virtual private network, a VPC, traffic filtering, load balancing. So many tutorials. That's one of the things I actually first brought me to DigitalOcean, is I'd look up, well, how do I set up a LampStack server? And there's 2,000 open source tutorials right there. So there's always a way to do it on DO. I love it. Standard general purpose or CPU optimized configurations, so it's flexible. You can build, test, and grow your application without moving it. And I love that. DigitalOcean, trusted by over 1 million developers, including me. Father Robert uses it too. It's really it's the 21st century. It makes everything easier. Go to do.co/twit, and if you sign up today, you'll get a free $100 credit. Now, that's a deal. Go to do.co/twit, free $100 credit. You'll be showing them you heard it here, and they'll be helping you out a little too. do.co/twit. DigitalOcean, designed for developers, built for businesses. I just love it. I'm going to be teaching the kids some programming stuff, and absolutely going to use DigitalOcean when they set up their first web apps and all that. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Well, this is interesting. Big Pee Wee's playing Purple Haze, the great Jimi Hendrix song, and like a lot of early stereo songs, I'm not hearing the singing very loud. Is that because I'm listening in mono? I don't know. 8888 Ask Leo, that's the phone number. Normally Chris Marquardt, our photo guy, would join us. He's on some sort of expedition as usual, but he'll be back. He'll be back next week to talk photos. And don't forget, our assignment continues, and that's to take a picture of a building. Pretty concrete, not like the action building, or just take a picture of a building. Now, it could be a detail of a building, it could be the whole building. You want to be creative and so forth. The assignments are not a competition. They're just an excuse to get out there and take photography, to practice your photography. But you don't have to have a fancy camera. It's fine to do it with your smartphone. But he wants you to use your eye and think of some interesting ways to show a building. I think that's kind of the idea. When you get something you like, submit it to our Tech Guy group on Flickr. Flickr is free. It's a free photo sharing site we love. Was owned by Yahoo. They recently sold it to SmugMug, and SmugMug's doing a great job. There's a free tier and there's a paid tier. I'm a paid member, but you don't have to be to participate in this. But you do have to join the Tech Guy group. That's also free. So go create an account at Flickr, join the Tech Guy group. Renee Silverman, our moderator, will welcome you. And then tag your picture with building and upload it to the group. You can upload as many as one a week. And in a couple of weeks, I think it might be a little while before Chris is ready to do the assignment. He'll pick 3 and talk about it and give us a new assignment. As of today, Chris embargoed me from taking any pictures for 2 weeks. Actually, I cheated yesterday. My daughter graduated from college. You think I'm not going to take pictures of that? Of course I am. I was sitting so far away, I had to break out the big, long lens. But I was able to get some great shots and of course, other pictures of her. I'm so proud of my little girl. So sorry, Chris, I did have to take some pictures. But my embargo's off. So now I go out and look for building. Building. Take a picture. And now, on with the show. We go to line 3, Brian in Mission Viejo. Hi, Brian.
Hello, Leo.
Hello.
My Wi-Fi is driving me nuts.
You're in a very large group.
So I have one neighbor, so I doubt it's interference.
Okay, what's happening?
New modem. It is on the list for Cox Communications for whatever plan I'm on.
Okay.
It's compatible.
So it's a combined modem and Wi-Fi router.
No, I just got Google Wi-Fi.
So it's a new modem and a new Wi-Fi.
Yes. I've got 3 pucks around the house. But my Wi-Fi still it still cuts out. Netflix is always buffering or getting pixelated. The Wi-Fi Verizon on my phone is always, half the time it's not even showing up on my phone.
So there could, a lot of reasons this could happen. One way to start, one diagnostic thing to start with is to use a wired connection directly to the cable modem. So get a laptop that has an Ethernet cable. I hope you have one. They're dying out. But if you have one with an Ethernet jack, go over there, unplug the router and plug that cable, the cable that goes from the modem to the router, unplug that and plug it into the back of your laptop. See if you can get that to work normally and what your speed is. Because that's eliminating any wireless issues at all. So just to make sure that everything's working fine from the cable company through the cable modem.
That's the problem. It's very intermittent. I mean, I could sit and watch TV for 4 hours and then...
But you don't know right now if it's the Wi-Fi or the cable company or the modem. So what I'm saying is let's eliminate the Wi-Fi. I know you'd have to sit for 4 hours.
Exactly.
But at least you can go there. There are a couple of things you can do to test the speed and the quality of the signal. And it would be worth doing that just to eliminate that. As if it's the cable company, nothing you do to your Google Wi-Fi is going to make a difference.
Yeah. The speed is fine. It's just...
It drops out periodically.
Sometimes I think it's Netflix, but, I mean, is their service ever going to be slow enough where...
Well, how fast is this speed?
Like 150 down.
And you feel like you're getting that when you do a speed test, even on Wi-Fi, you see 150?
Yeah, I try the fast test on my Fire Stick.
That's a good one because that's going directly to Netflix. In fact, Netflix created fast.com for you.
Still, yeah, I mean...
So that's if it says 150, by the way, that's remarkable. If it says 150... that means that's how fast Netflix should be because you're connecting to Netflix's own servers. So that's a very good sign. It would if that's pretty consistent, then it does mean there's something else going on. There are a lot of reasons. And by the way, just because you only have one neighbor doesn't mean it couldn't be him. How close is the neighbor?
Well, I mean, we each have a side yard.
Yeah, not too...
it's not too close.
And you can see but you can see when you look at Wi-Fi, you can see his Wi-Fi access point, right?
Yes.
That means he's close enough. So that's one potential. Is it better? So I take it your TV's not next to the base unit, not next to the cable.
The main router is in a bedroom, is one bedroom away, but I've got a puck in the main room, and the TV is 10 feet away.
Yeah. Move it around, maybe. Sometimes the connection... So this Google Wi-Fi is like a number of other Wi-Fis, a mesh system, which has a base unit that's connected to your cable modem. As you know, I'm just selling the rest of the world. And you have one or two other extra units. And in theory, they're all talking to one another. You look at the app, and it says good connection on all the base units.
Yeah, there's never... Whatever test I do, it always says, yeah, it looks great.
Looks great. Yeah, they don't give you a lot of detail, do they? There's an Android program called Wi-Fi Mapper that I've used. Are you iOS or Android?
iOS.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't use any of these things on iOS because Apple doesn't let any third-party program have access to that radio. So you could do it on a laptop. There's Mac and Windows, like NetSpot is for Mac and Windows. There are apps. I use a Wi-Fi mapping app on my Android. That will actually show you hot spots, cold spots. It'll give you a better idea of, because if you think of Wi-Fi as kind of a lamp, there's places that are brighter and darker. And it's even possible as you move things around to get the light, better. Sometimes just moving things around will help. But a Wi-Fi mapper will tell you exactly where it's green, yellow, and red as the signal degrades and so forth. NetSpot has a website where they talk about these. Yeah. It could be. There could be interference too from other devices. Operate, if possible, at 5 gigahertz. That will eliminate neighbors' interference because 5 gigahertz doesn't travel very far. It will also eliminate interference from other devices operating at the 2.4 gigahertz band, which may include microwave ovens, baby monitors, all sorts of stuff. This is a tricky one. As any radio engineer will tell you, RF, radio frequency, is a black art, and that's what you're using. And there's things can get in the way. Weird things can happen. Failing every 4 hours is kind of annoying. That could be your ISP doing it. Especially if the ISP is in the cable business, because let's face it, they don't want you watching Netflix. So I don't know. Try other speed tests. There is a very good, I'll put a link in the show notes to a very good, but unfortunately a Java-based thing called Net Analyzer. It will tell you more about your routers and your bandwidth. Diagnostics are your best friend. But, it's hard for me from a remote distance to know what's going on. It could be, any or all of the above. Wi-Fi mapping tools, heat mapping tools are very handy. Really, really useful. And by the mapping tools, I don't mean one that just tells you what the signals are, but one that actually make a map of your house. And you can, that's what we use here at the studio, for instance. Russell will use that to see, if there's problem spots. Maybe your TV's just right at a problem spot. Archandra explains, Jimmy in Purple Haze is panned to the right, so obviously I was getting left channel only. Yep. Netalyzer is gone? Oh, no. Because I loved that. They also had an Android app. Oh, I'll be very disappointed. Oh, yeah, they're gone. First week of March. Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a project, college project, so not surprised. And it was also based on Android, which is probably not ideal. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, coming to you live from Paradise City. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number. Yeah, Wi-Fi is a great mystery. There are a lot of tools out there. I'm very sad to say that one of the tools I was recommending, Netalyzer, which was a project from the University of California at Berkeley, is no longer. I just went to the site. They discontinued in March. They said all of us have moved on to other projects. It's a university project, not surprising. All of us have moved on to other projects, and we just can't keep it alive. So, Netalyzer, because that was a great tool, despite the fact that it used Java. But there was I think a good reason. It needed some real power under the hood. You had to really run a program. And so it was a website, but it was a website that used Java. And, I think that's fine. It's, people don't have Java most of the time installed in their computers these days. It's kind of gone away. So that made it a little bit more difficult to use. But, man, that thing would tell you all sorts of stuff about your system, your bandwidth, where the problems lay. Wish we had something like that still. 8888 Ask Leo. There's still plenty of other tools out there. That's one I really liked. Chris in Boca Raton, Florida. Hi, Chris. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Leo, great to talk to you. How are you?
Nice to talk to you. I'm well. How are you?
Doing awesome. Congratulations on your graduation. I've got one coming next year for my daughter. So
it's a good feeling. Proud. And I'm trying not to be too mercenary, but it is nice not to have to write any more tuition checks.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not exactly. I mean, there's many other reasons I'm very happy and proud, but that it doesn't hurt. What can I do for you today?
So I have two connectivity questions. I'm going to travel to South Brazil, to São Paulo for work.
How fun!
Traveled there many times for pleasure, and thank God for T-Mobile. You get off the plane and everything works. But the data rates there, their typical telephone data rates are so slow on LTE that it's almost impossible to send an email or download a web page. You really have to hook up to Wi-Fi somewhere. So I've got an Arsenal building here. I got a Google Fi I'm going to take with me too. But I heard you promote the Skyroam Solus.
Yeah. But that's not going to help you if the 4G is terrible.
That was my question. Okay, because I'm an MVNO when I go there with T-Mobile. I'm just riding on someone else's network, right?
Yeah, so if if there's a good carrier and a bad carrier, then you'd want to be using the good carrier, and that might be one solution. But, when you're on Google Fi or T-Mobile, you're using T-Mobile. It's, of course, Deutsche Telekom, so it's all over the world. And, they have decent speeds everywhere. But if São Paulo isn't great, and I wouldn't be surprised. Brazil, as you know, is kind of a unique beast. They really have stringent laws against foreign corporations. They really want everybody to coming out of Brazil, and it may just be that they don't. Just the way it is. Here's what I would do. Go to this site I've recommended many times. I'll recommend it again. It's a wiki, which means that everybody contributes to it. And a lot of travelers come home and say, hey, this worked, this didn't work. It's a long URL. So just Google prepaid with data wiki.
Great site.
Oh, you know it?
A couple hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah, well, from you, of course.
So that will be the most up-to-date Brazilian information. And they'll even break it down to Sao Paulo. But
yeah. Even if you get a local SIM card over there, the data is still slow. So I just didn't see how SkyRoam could speed that up.
No, it doesn't.
Right off the local carrier.
It doesn't. It's riding off the local carriers. So there's no magic when you're out away from any Wi-Fi signal. There's no magic. You're only getting the data that's floating through the air. And if none of the data there works, well.
It's just the providers down there. Here's my second quickie question. So I have a new router, and it's got a dual antenna. It's got the 5 gigahertz antenna, and then whatever their regular antenna is, 2 gigahertz.
2.4, yeah.
If I split my Internet of Things to the 2 gigahertz and my important data onto the 5, am I creating a little bit more security for myself?
No. Short answer, no. So the problem is with Internet of Things devices, they're on your network. They're peers, whether they're on 2.4 or 5, with everything else on your network. If they have flaws, let's say you have a camera that has a known admin password and login, or worse, as many cameras have no password and login. Not only does that mean somebody can use that camera and spy on you, they can also get into that camera and use that as a gateway into your network, which is arguably maybe even worse, because now they're on your network, even if they're in Brazil, or anywhere. So that means all your IoT devices are potentially gateways into a network. To isolate them, it takes more. Well, the ideal way to isolate them is with something called a VLAN, or a virtual local area network. There are routers that do VLANs now. I often, Steve Gibson, our security guru, often recommends the Ubiquity, what's it called? Edge Router X. And that's an inexpensive $50 hardwired router with 4 ports that one of the things it can do is you can say, this port is VLAN 1, this port's VLAN 2, never the twain shall meet. A device on VLAN 1 cannot see what's going on VLAN 2. And you can set it up in the firmware of the edge router. You can say, and that VLAN 1 only goes to the outside world. It doesn't go anywhere else. So that effectively isolates it. Yeah, the other way to do it is not a 2-router, but a 3-router solution, which is crazy. You can Google it, the 3-router Wi-Fi solution. Steve proposed it. A number of people have also mentioned it. But a VLAN is a much better way to do it. And by the way, cheaper and probably more effective. I bet you now.
I'm going to get IoT devices that update themselves.
Very important. Numero uno. And get them from reliable companies. Because, and for instance, Steve was talking about a D-Link. Now, D-Link's a well-known name. A D-Link camera that sent the video unencrypted through the air. So anybody could get it and watch, spy on you. This is a well-known brand. Many millions of people have this camera. So even a good brand name won't tell you. You want to really check. I said, well, now I wonder, this $20 Wise cam I have, boy, this has to be worse than the D-Link even. No, they do everything right. And you can go to their site and say,
5 feet away from a Wise cam, and I got it because of you. And yeah, they've updated many times.
They update automatically because you can't be expected to go around each device and say, are you up to date? They also use this certificates and strong encryption to protect your signal. They do everything right. It's really impressive for a $20 camera. So you can't always do it by price, by brand name. You just kind of have to check. But again, this Edge Router X is a highly geeky solution, but is a good $50 choice. So I would look at that. You sound like you know what you're talking about. I would bet by now that there are consumer Wi-Fi routers that also offer VLANs or some sort of LAN isolation, but I'll have to check to see. I don't know.
I wrote it down. I'll Google and go forward from there. Thanks,
yeah.
Leo.
You're very welcome. It's a great question. It's appropriate to talk about this because I think people aren't paying that much attention to it. But IoT, what is it Steve says? The S in IoT stands for security, which is a very geeky joke because there is no S in IoT. Most IoT, Internet of Things devices are the processors are so dumb. It's hard to put security in a light bulb that connects to the internet. So it is effectively a gateway to bad guys into your house. Think of it that way. And so it's important to be careful about those devices. And if you can, isolate them. I imagine we'll see more consumer routers with this kind of isolation because this is going to be a big deal. The Plume does it. I think the Eros do it. I think, in fact, as I remember, many of these mesh routers do offer this kind of isolation. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, your digital photography, your smartphones, you got your smart watches, all that jazz. 8888 Ask Leo is the phone number, 888-827-5536. That's toll free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. Outside that area, you can still reach us. Skype out. That's the way to do it. 8888 Ask Leo. We've been watching on the show over the last couple of years. Actually, it goes all the way back to 2012, I think. The story of Huawei, the Chinese phone and network equipment manufacturer. Some have accused of being owned by the Chinese government or the Chinese military. Actually, Huawei's ownership is a little mysterious. They claim to be owned by their workers, but it's difficult to find exactly what's going on there. They're in mainland China. They're the number 2 phone manufacturer in the world. They make very popular Android devices. You may not have heard of them because they are not sold in the United States, but sometimes people buy them unlocked, on Amazon and other places, but no carrier sells them in the U.S., and they don't market into the U.S. You may have heard of the Huawei MateBook laptops. They're very popular, even in the U.S., because they're excellent, high-quality laptops at a very affordable price. And if you're a network operator, you know Huawei because they're the number 1 manufacturer of network equipment, particularly 5G equipment in the world. You may also remember back in 2012, the U.S. Department of Commerce warning American companies to stay away from equipment manufactured by a couple of Chinese companies, including Huawei, because of the fear that the Chinese government might have some influence in these companies and perhaps they could use their networking equipment to spy on American companies for industrial espionage. There's also an undercurrent of maybe fear about Huawei and others, ZTE, Xiaomi, those are the big 3, that perhaps their network equipment, if it were embedded too deeply into our infrastructure, could be used in cyber warfare. So not only industrial espionage, but governmental espionage, and even perhaps a governmental attack bringing down our networks. There's a lot of fear there. Huawei's equipment, its network equipment, like all modern network equipment, is a combination of hardware and software. In fact, more and more, the software is really what makes it work. And the problem with that is software, it can be updated remotely, without intervention from the operator. And so you might look at a piece of Huawei gear. In the past, if it's just been hardware, countries could take it apart, could say, yeah, we verify this is safe and use it. But since it's all or mostly software these days, there's no guarantee. It could be completely safe today and a real problem tomorrow. So the most recent events in the Huawei story are the president saying no Huawei gear will be used in the United States, period, in networks. And according to Reuters, Google is doing the same thing as of today. Now, this is not confirmed by Google. Google has suspended business with Huawei. Now, you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, it means if you have a Huawei phone, and there are very popular phones. My friend Paul Thurrott, who's a Windows journalist, loves his Huawei, is the P20. I can't remember the model, but he loves his phone. It's got an amazing camera, really great phone. I have a P20 myself. Well, you're going to lose access to not only Android operating system updates. That's always a problem with any Android phone because that means no security patches. But the next version of its smartphones outside of China, well, will also, actually none of the phones in China had it, but phones sold outside of China will no longer have access to any Google apps, including the Play Store and Gmail. According to Reuters, Huawei attorneys are studying the impacts of the Commerce Department's actions. This story about Google just broke today. I've kind of been on the fence in all this because it did sound political. I have to say it no longer sounds political. It sounds like serious and genuine concerns. The reason I was on the fence is because it hadn't been demonstrated by anybody, to my knowledge, that any Huawei gear had any security flaws. And Huawei's always said, no, we adhere to the higher standards. If data that is routed from your phone to our servers, it's routed to Germany, not China. Because Android is open source, Huawei will be able to continue to make Android phones, but without Google updates, technical support, and Google apps, that makes that a much less desirable phone. Huawei does have an alternative in China because Google doesn't do business in China, so they have something they're doing in China. Maybe they try to extend that globally. I don't know. Thursday, Huawei was added to a trade blacklist, which meant that no U.S. company could do business with Huawei. So Google may just be following, without any evidence, just saying, well, that's the law, that's the law. But that is a shame for people who really like Huawei hardware, and I'm one of them. It's very impressive. But, if it's dangerous to use, if it could compromise national security, I guess it's probably better not to. There are other choices. There's 5G gear. The number 2 and 3 companies that manufacture 5G networking gear, which we need desperately if we're going to get to 5G in the next few years, are Ericsson and Nokia, Scandinavian companies, Finnish companies. So that should be all right. And what I'd love to see is American companies step up and say, well, here's a big opportunity. Unfortunately, right now, Apple dominates the American market with Samsung as a second. So I like Samsung gear a lot. I think they make very good gear. I don't feel like Apple is particularly cutting edge. And one of the reason people liked the Huawei phones is they were doing something different and trying some, interesting ideas and making very affordable phones. Apple phones only seem to get more expensive every year. That's pretty much a guaranteed trend, isn't it? Thinner and more expensive. Nolan, Los Angeles, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Thanks for hanging on, Nolan.
Hey, how you doing, Leo?
I'm well. What can I do for you?
Well, let's see. So I've been listening to you. I've listened to you regularly, but I had not paid attention. So I have a...
Hey, as long as you listen, you don't have to pay attention. I'm cool with that.
Okay. Well, not to certain things. So I have an elderly mother. Cell phones, the touchpads are too small, etc. Yeah. But my real question is there like you mentioned Echo and the different devices. Is there a device that she can call me, like call my son, that I can connect to a landline, and then like it gives a response calling my son, and you say yes to reconfirm it's dialing the right number and those kinds of things?
Yes, in fact.
Are there devices out there like that?
Echo will, in fact, do that. So that is a real lifesaver for a lot of elderly and disabled people. You can, with your voice, make a call, and she can just sit in her chair. She doesn't have to get up. The Echo hears her perfectly well. I mean, she'll sound to you. She'll sound a little distant, but you'll be able to hear her, and she'll be able to talk to you on your phone. Yeah, that's a feature they added a couple of years ago. It's called Echo Connect. Now, you're going to have to go over there and set it up.
Right. No problem.
Echo Connect is an accessory that will connect directly to her phone line. So she can make traditional phone calls, but Echo will also make VoIP phone calls. So you get to choose. And you'll go over, you can use your Amazon account. I usually find that easier. I set up my mom's Echoes with my account, and she turned it off, breaking everything I set up. She said, I'm tired of seeing your calendar show up on my Echo show.
Okay.
You can even, if you want, and I would recommend this, both Google and Amazon sell devices, Google Assistant devices or Amazon Home devices, that have screens and cameras. And so she could make a video call to you. And I think a lot of older people, that's how I talk to my mom. I use FaceTime, but that's how I talk to my mom. And for her, that's almost as good as a visit. So absolutely, I think a great feature. I hear people all the time. We have blind listeners and others who say, yeah, my Echo is a lifesaver. And we've even heard stories of people who've fallen. They can't get up, but they can shout, and they get the Echo to call for help. I think it's a great thing to put in a home. For older parents, I think it's a great idea. My mom has Echoes all over the place. She uses it for everything. She says, I turn on the hot water. It takes a while in her house for the hot water to get hot. So I set a timer with my Echo. I'll say, Echo, set a timer for 30 seconds so she doesn't forget. She's got the water running and getting hot. Little things like that. You know, once you live with them, you can't live without them. So kudos to Amazon. And I believe the Google Assistant also will make outbound phone calls. But Echo did it first. So it's a really, I think, a very nice feature. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. The Gizwiz coming up in about half an hour. But we have time for some more calls. Let's get Katie on the line from Long Beach. Hello, Katie.
Hi, Leo. Thank you so much for taking my call. This is really exciting for me. I've been listening to you for years. Never had the nerve to call, but now I've got an issue where I claim probably stupidity on my part.
No, let me stop you right there. You're not stupid. You're smart. You know that, Katie, and you're smart to call me. Maybe you've got a question or some confusion, but it's not stupidity.
Well, I need to correct something that I did and shouldn't have done.
How stupid can you be? Come on, knock it on. No,
okay.
Teasing you. What did you do?
I must have clicked on something that I shouldn't have, and lo and behold, there is some malware that I've discovered that appears in the form of a ribbon on the top of my screen. I did some research on this label of the ribbon that's Your Transit Info Now, and it is claimed to be malware.
Yeah, I mean, if you did not install something called Your Transit Info Now,
I did not.
And it encourages you to click on a link, that's probably malware, and certainly do not, whatever you do, click on that link.
Oh, no. I have not done anything with this. It's very inviting, I might add, which I guess
yes,
do that.
Of course it is, because who wouldn't want to know about Your Transit Info Now?
No. And it really appears to be a search engine powered by...
they make money every time you click.
Yeah. So how do I get rid of it? Is Malwarebytes a safe approach to take?
You don't need Malwarebytes. So I have mixed feelings about Malwarebytes. First of all, any program you download onto your computer, anything, has the potential to make it worse. Okay. And so my one piece of advice I always give is download as little software as possible. Malwarebytes itself, if you get it from the actual Malwarebytes folks, is safe. But it's very easy if you Google Malwarebytes to find many places that aren't. That's fake Malwarebytes. So make sure you get it from
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah, make sure you get it from malwarebytes.org. That's the official. What Malwarebytes is a removal tool, basically. And so, actually, I guess .com. I'll take it back and say .com. It used to be .org, but it looks like they're now really a business, and they don't want to charge you, which, so. And there have been cases where Malwarebytes has added more problems than it's solved. So the good news is what you have is not really malware in the sense that it's a dangerous thing that's modified your computer. It's what's called a browser hijacker object, or BHO. You've probably seen that term. And it's basically just a plugin. So it's easy to get. You can... just going to a malicious web page. And before we get you off the line, I'm going to tell you what not to do from now on. It is not a stupid thing that you did. It's unfortunately very common and very easy, but also fortunately not a terrible thing. You can pretty much get rid of it. Malwarebytes will probably do so. You may also just look at the extensions in your browser And I bet you one of them will be one you did not install, and it will be the browser hijacker object. It's possible to make these things a little bit less obvious.
Mm-hmm.
If you do download and run Malwarebytes, I think there used to be a free version. Go ahead and do it, and then get rid of it. That would be the safest thing to do. Don't leave it on your system. Don't let it run all the time. Are you on Windows 10?
Yes.
So the reason you don't really need Malwarebytes in general is Windows 10 has its own antivirus. As you can see, it's not perfect, but none is. It's more perfect than most, and because it's from Microsoft, it's less intrusive than most. In fact, Microsoft's done some really impressive things. They call it Defender, including sandboxing, that makes Defender, I think, a very, very good antivirus. But it won't stop you from everything, because if you think about it, if you ask to install something, you know, your security software is not going to say, well, no. That would be annoying. So it can't save you from yourself. And so what I would suggest is go ahead, use Malwarebytes, remove it, get rid of it. It's a class of browser hijacker called a spigot. And so all of the spigot browser hijackers are fairly easy to remove. They're not too difficult to get rid of. So in fact, if you
a quick comment, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I know you need to get going. I ran Windows Defender yesterday and did the advanced scan to see what else was out there that perhaps I didn't know about, and it said I came out clean, that there was nothing, and I was surprised.
Well, and this is the difficulty in any company, any anti-malware company. If you said, I want this thing on my system, they're not going to call it malware. Now, it snuck into it kind of got into your system. Probably, most likely what you did is you downloaded something from a shareware site and didn't notice that when you downloaded it, there was a box that popped up with a bunch of check marks saying, would you like to also get this, this, and this?
I just don't remember doing that.
No, that's not unusual.
I downloaded train schedule, and that was the last thing.
Yeah, it was probably related to train schedule. That sounds reasonable.
Because of your transit.
Yeah. You know, because this is a whole class of browser hijacker objects that really are designed to get you to click links, and they make a little money every time somebody clicks a link. Go ahead and use Malwarebytes. That's fine. If Defender didn't find it and remove it, Malwarebytes certainly will. You could also Google Spigot browser hijackers and find out more about what you've got. There are ways to do it manually as well. I wonder, when you get Windows, you also get a Microsoft malicious software removal tool, and I wonder if that would find it. Actually, I'm very curious if that would. Now, the problem with that is there's no icon in the start menu to run that, unfortunately, Katie. So you have to hit the Windows key and type MRT return. Is that going to do it? Oh, I'm on Linux. Of course it's not going to do it there. You hit the Windows key and type MRT and hit return and then do a thorough scan. See if that will do it. That may remove stuff that Defender does not. Defender's more targeted to viruses. And this isn't a virus. This is something you installed inadvertently, but nevertheless installed. And so they don't want to remove something you installed if you really wanted it.
Okay.
That's why Defender probably just ignored it. MRT might find it, so I would do that. And then, yeah, you can run Malwarebytes. The key on this, so there are a couple of things to keep in mind. When you download software from a shareware site, that's always perilous. But some shareware sites, some you would even not expect to, like cnetsdownloads.com, will ask you, oh, well, in order to get this, you have to put our installer on your computer. That's always a bad sign. And when you run their installer, it will also, and they'll do it sneakily, say, oh, and by the way, you would like this too, and install extra stuff. It's how they make money. So generally, I say if you're looking for something to download, try to download it from the person who created it, the website of the person who wrote it, as opposed to Softpedia or CNET or one of the other download sites.
Right. Well, I'm very disappointed in myself. I was an early adopter. I can't even tell you how many years ago. And to think that I'm the one that's calling you on this matter is just very embarrassing. So,
oh, don't be embarrassed. No. And then the other thing that is really important is that you always do your updates.
Yes, I do.
Not only your operating system, but all your apps. And the reason is sometimes some of this stuff gets on there without your intervention, without your doing anything, just because you go to a website that's infected. And that's nothing you can do about that if you don't have the updates. The updates are designed to protect you against those kinds of flaws. And by the way, even that's not perfect. But I don't run an antivirus other than Defender. I don't run an antivirus on any other operating system. I haven't had a virus in decades. And that's just because you're a little careful about where you go, what you click on, what links you click on, and what you install.
And so the bottom line is I decided not to take the train. I'm going to drive.
Well, that seems a little extreme.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I know.
Anyway, thank you, Leo.
My pleasure.
Congratulations to you, your family, and especially your daughter.
Katie, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Oh.
Sounds like you had a recent graduate, or maybe you're a professor. I don't know.
No, I'm a grandmother, and the years go by so fast. And just savor every moment.
Believe me,
family.
I can't believe it. Abby was just a little baby not a few minutes ago.
Oh, I know. So cute.
I'm very proud of her.
Thank you for your time, your
Thanks,
help,
Katie.
And congratulations on your success.
Thank you, Katie. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, yeah, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Oh, I got Big Pee-wee still queuing up the disco because I said the Gizwiz is coming up. This is Sunday, Leo. See, that's what happens when you take a day off. Your whole calendar gets screwed up. No Gizwiz. We're just going to keep taking calls the rest of the hour. 8888, ask Leo. Another Leo on the line from Van Nuys. Hi, Leo. It's Leo. Hello, Leo.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Great.
Hello.
Thanks for calling.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, Leo, I should be spelled backwards, O-L or something, because I'm opposite of tech guy.
That's cool. Somebody's got to do it.
Here's my problem. I have taken pictures on my phone, on various phones over the past few years, and I transfer them onto some sort of a storage, USB or SD card. And then when I go to print them, they're kind of grouped, but they're all out of order. And what I'm trying to do is see if I can get them in chronological sequence. If there's any program that can somehow search the pictures.
Are the pictures, where do they come from? They come from a digital camera or a phone?
Yes. No, I bought a digital camera in 2010 or so, and it was too complicated for me, so I got rid of that. I'm just using a phone. But I have different phones over the years.
That's fine. When you take a picture with any smartphone, it actually puts in what they call the metadata, which is, so it's not visible in the picture, but it's stored in the file, the time and date you created it. It also puts GPS coordinates and other things in there. So all that information is attached to that file every time, no matter what you do, as you move it and stuff. But some programs will look at the creation date from the file system as opposed to the camera creation date. So when you copy it to the computer, that becomes the file creation date. That's the date the file on that computer was made. But that's different from the time you took the picture, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Let me stop you for a second. Not only that, I find out once I do copy it or something, it changes that date. It updates it, and then I no longer know when I took the picture.
So if you're looking at the file information, in Explorer or whatever, it'll show that's the file creation date. When you move it, it updates that date. And actually, that's technically the file modified date. So all files on your computer have two dates, file creation and file modification date. Neither of those has anything to do with when you took the picture, and that's what you care about. But the good news is any program that understands photography will allow you to sort by creation date. So are you just using Explorer to look at it?
I guess so. Yeah. Okay. So I guess I need a name of a good program then that will read the picture date, the photograph.
Yeah, because in fact, any photo program will. So it makes sense. The file program will prefer the file creation date. A photo program will prefer the picture creation date because that's what it's all about. Now, I think Windows, let me see if Windows will let you sort photos by not file creation date, but photo creation date. I think if you right-click on the folder, you might be able to sort. I'm just looking here. Maybe the chat room will know. Right-click inside of a folder, select sort by, select more. Well, let's see, there's date access and date modified. You don't care about that particularly. What you want is, no. Yeah, it does have a lot of that metadata in the Explorer, like the, information about the camera and stuff. It doesn't look like it has creation date. I would look at that, though, just in case. I'm not looking at a Windows machine, so I don't have that in front of me. I would look at that. But there are lots of programs that will do that. You're on Windows 10?
No, 7.
Windows 7, okay. Because Windows 10 has a Photos program. I'm not sure if Windows 10 does. Let me just see if Windows 7 has that as well. The Microsoft Photos program, if you can go to the Microsoft Store, you can download the Microsoft Photos program for free. I'm pretty sure that'll run on Windows 7. That's a very simple program. It actually will look a lot like your File Explorer, except that it understands photos. And it even has a little bit of editing built into it. So that's probably a good start for something free that just, is built by Windows.
What's the name of that one, Leo?
It's called Microsoft Photos, and you should see it in the Microsoft Store if you search for Photos. There's a lot of other programs like IrfanView. There are a lot of other graphics programs. But try the... Say again?
Can you spell that for me?
IRFAN View, VIEW.
Oh, I see.
In Windows 10, so this is something, I'm not sure if Windows 7 does this, but in Windows 10, when you do what I said, which is open, right-click the Explorer, sort by, go to more, there is a way to sort by date taken, which is what you want, the date the photo was taken.
Okay.
So I would, that is something that, at least in Windows 10, the File Explorer is smart enough to do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Windows 7 did it as well, because remember in Windows 7, it kind of looks and says, oh, these are photos, and it shows you pictures, right? It shows you thumbnails of the picture.
That's right.
So it's at least savvy enough to know, well, these are photos. So I bet you if you open the pictures, the folder that it's in, click View, Sort By, choose columns. You can add a column that's the date taken. Okay, Lou MM is saying this. Now, Lou works for Microsoft, but Lou, is this for Windows 10 or Windows 7? Will it work for Windows 7? That's the real question. So we have somebody in the chat room who is a Microsoft employee.
I think a friend helped me one time. We got them in order on the screen, but when we went to print them, they came out of order, out of sequence again.
Yeah, printing might be another matter entirely. Yeah, so at the top of the window they have those columns: name, created date, stuff like that. You can add a column, according to Lou MM. You can add a column that says date taken, and then if you click that column, it'll sort them. I think if you do that and then you print at that point, the printer should pick them up sorted that way.
Okay, well, I will give it a try. I'll try to try some of these ideas and see. If not, I'll call you back.
Call me back anytime. You're always welcome, Leo.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks a lot.
Is it Leo short for anything?
No, that's it.
Me too. No, They always ask me, are you Leopold? No, I'm Leo.
Oh,
Leonardo? No, Leo.
Yeah, I prefer Leo, I think, to Leopold anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to be Leopold or Leonardo. Hey, Leo, it's great to talk to you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye. He's the anti-tech guy, he says. Yeah, I don't unfortunately have a copy of Windows 7. I should probably have computers. I should have Windows 95, 98, Vista, XP, 7, 8, 8.1, and 10. I should have all those in front of me, but I don't. So I apologize. I can't try this. But it does sound to me like this. If this is in 10, I bet you it's in 7. Because we know that Windows Explorer, the File Explorer, is savvy about some folder types. And if it's a photos folder, it will display them as photos, thumbnails. However, there are many other good programs that will certainly do that. They're photo-focused. If you really do a lot of things with photos, Photoshop Elements it's not free. It's under $100, but that's a very nice photo sorting things. If you're on Windows 10, Microsoft Photos, I bet you they make it for Windows 7 too. I'm not sure. The world has changed, and Microsoft doesn't really want you to use Windows 7 anymore. Unfortunately. TechGuyLabs.com if you've got a suggestion for a nice free, let's make it free, Windows Photo Explorer that would work in Windows 7. Go to TechGuyLabs.com. We divide the page up into shows. This is episode, 1593. Go to hour 3, segment 3. Click right there and leave your suggestion. The Tech Guy Podcast brought to you this week by Clear. You know how I like to show up seconds before the show begins? You probably don't, but if you ever watch live, it's always a guessing game to see, is Leo going to make it this time? I'm kind of that way at the airport too. I don't want to waste any time sitting in the airport waiting for the flight to leave. So the problem is there's one thing at the airport that's very unpredictable. That's that security line. That's why I use Clear. Clear is awesome. Instead of, the old-fashioned show them your driver's license and prove you're you, they use your eyes and the tips of your fingers instead of traditional ID documents to get you through security faster, much faster at airports and stadiums. Yep, your irises and your fingerprints, that's all you need. It's more secure, and it's faster. Clear gets you through security with a tap of your fingers. You can get to your gate faster, reduce pre-flight stress, and there's nothing more stressful than that mad dash because I'm late to get to the airport, but Clear makes it easy. No more physical ID cards. Your best ID is you, right? Your iris and your fingerprint. It's very easy, by the way. I was a member of Clear when they first started, and they've really streamlined the process. It's so easy to sign up. Create your account online before you go to the airport. So you got it all ready to go. This is the next flight. And then once you get there, go to the Clear ambassador, and she'll help you finish the process, and you can use Clear that time on that flight immediately. It's very quick, very painless. If you have kids, they have family travel plans. You can add up to 3 adult family members at a discounted rate, and kids under 18 are free. So Lisa's get a discounted rate. Michael gets to go for free. You'll get through airport security faster at 40-plus airports and stadiums. I'm really thrilled that they're adding Clear to the security process. When you go to a concert or a ballpark these days, there's security, again, that you have to go through, but not with Clear. It's very easy. They're adding it. More stadiums every day, more airports. If you've seen it, I know, if you go to the airport and you see all the people, the happy people, the Clear people in that line just waltzing their way in, no stress, no muss, no fuss. You see that? You should be doing that. You can get your first 2 months free, too, if you go to ClearMe, that's the website, ClearMe.com/TechGuy. Use a promo code TechGuy. ClearMe.com/TechGuy, promo code TechGuy. 2 free months right off the top of Clear. And I'm thrilled to be able to tell you about Clear and encourage you to make your experience at the airport more relaxing. Then you could be sitting in the lounge when you see Leo huff up. I made it. We're closing the doors, sir. I'm here. Thank you, Clear. Thank you, Clear. Leo Laporte. Thank you to our musical director, Big Pee-wee. If you don't hear music on the podcast, well, you got to listen to the radio show. That's where Big Pee-wee shines. Time to move on to line 4, Jose in Modesto, California. Hi, Jose. Thanks for hanging on.
Hello, Leo.
Hello.
I have a question about DD-WRT routers. Are they good as the enterprise ones, like in terms of security and if they're safe?
Well, there's 2 parts to a router, of course. There's hardware, and there's the firmware. DD-WRT is an open source firmware. It was actually created originally for the old Linksys. In fact, the name WRT comes from the Linksys WRT54G routers. And it was designed to be kind of alternative firmware. So you could get rid of the Linksys software, which was not the greatest software in the world, and use this open source solution. A router, if you understand what a router is, it's really just a computer. It's got a CPU, it's got memory, it's got storage. It's just a computer. It's a dumb, slow computer, but it's a computer. So you can put a different operating system on it in many cases, not every case. Sometimes the manufacturers will lock it down. I like DD-WRT a lot. That and Tomato, which is a competing open source third-party firmware, are really good, especially for routers from companies like, I'm sad to say, Linksys, that don't keep their routers up to date and secure. It's also a lot of fun to play with. So I have no problem with DD-WRT. In fact, a lot of times I'll recommend the ASUS routers because they have a modified version of DD-WRT on their routers, which is a great place to start. A lot of capability built into there. And you can continue to use the ASUS WRT, or you could download DD-WRT and replace it. So if you're looking at a router and you have a router that can support it, DD-WRT is a very good choice. And the good news is it's become kind of an industry in and of itself. If you go to dd-wrt.com, you'll see that they actually, it's a business now. And that's good news because it means it's going to be up to date and supported. I think Tomato's now getting a little out of date. So DD-WRT has absolutely my strongest recommendation. It's really, really good. And in fact, Asus's version of it is good, but it's nice to have that as an option. And if you have any Linksys WRT 54G routers around, we have a dozen of them. It was like everybody bought it. It was the cheap router. Putting DD-WRT on it will make it like, wow, this is great. It'll be secure, it'll be better, and it'll be much more capable and reliable. So highly recommend. You got my seal of approval, Jose. Clyde in San Diego. Hey, Clyde, Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
How are you, Leo?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. I've got a little problem with an old iPhone. It's a 5S. I broke mine. I dropped it and broke it, but it still works. The screen's all cracked, and my wife has one that she is no longer using. She got a new iPhone, and I've just moved my service over to it, but I can't figure out how to move over all of the non-Apple music that I have stored on that iPhone.
Well, first of all,
Apple is no help.
Oh, I'll help you. That's easy. But first of all, very important, that's the only place that music lives?
Well, I've got most of the CDs. Some of it was purchased and some were CDs that I had a...
But you put a lot of time and effort into ripping those CDs and putting them on that phone, right?
Well, I don't even remember how I put them on the phone. I think I put them on my Mac.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Then you synced the phone via iTunes to the Mac.
But they're no longer on the Mac.
Well, so there are people listening know exactly where Leo's going right here. Make sure it's really imperative you don't have a backup for those. If you lost that phone or if it stopped working.
Well, I do have, because I backed it up to the computer, and I don't know.
Oh, all right. I see. Yeah, when you back up an iPhone, it makes a blob that has everything in it. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Well, the good news is that is a backup. You can't just pull stuff out of it very easily, but it is a backup. And so if worst came to worst, you could always restore that onto a phone and all your music would be there. But here's what I'd like you to do. First, let's get it back onto a computer so that you have another copy and it's accessible, right? That's the other thing. It's not really accessible on the iPhone. Now, one thing you could do is connect it back to that computer you used iTunes with, and as long as that music is, you can play it on your phone, right?
Oh yeah. I can play it on my broken. My screen's all cracked. And but it still works.
Connect it up to that same computer. iTunes will say, "Oh, hi, old friend, old buddy, old pal," and it'll probably say on there, "Oh, there are tracks on here that aren't on iTunes. Would you like me to back those up?"
Every time I hooked it up, all I see is just a few tracks of music that I actually purchased on my iPhone.
Okay.
I don't see the music on my phone.
Okay. So
I look at the phone. I can see the phone. I'm sorry. I can see the music, but I haven't figured out how do I get it off of
yeah,
there?
you're gonna. So
I can see it.
iTunes, yeah, you could see it on the phone, but you can't see it on iTunes, which is weird.
No,
but
I can see it on iTunes.
Oh, all right.
The whole screen comes up, and I can see every song I've got on my phone.
Right.
But I haven't figured out what I can do at that stage to move it or to hold it there while I plug in my new phone.
No. Yeah, so what you want to do is move it all back to the computer. So
right, and I haven't figured out how to do that. I can see it when I load iTunes. I mean, I can see it on iTunes.
Yeah, well, that means
at my phone.
Yeah, that means it's there. So that's the good point. I think if you sync, it should at the point where you try to sync, it should say, "I see music that's on your phone that's not on the hard drive. Would you like me to copy it?" If it's not saying that, then I'm puzzled. I'm not sure. This is one of the wonderful blessings of that software that Apple has given us, iTunes.
Yeah.
There are third-party programs like Synuity for Windows or iExplore, which will copy it over. So worst case, you might want to get one of these third-party programs. The reason Apple is funny about this is the music industry was so paranoid about the iPod in the earliest days. They thought, oh, this will be the ultimate piracy device, that they made it so that you couldn't just copy stuff off of an iPod. They were worried you'd go over to your friends, bring your iPod, and you just take all your music, and it'd be the ideal piracy device. And that heritage lives on with the iPhone. However, there are many apps, including iExplorer, the iMazing app, Synuity, which is iTunes backwards, which will move music off. You need a program to do that because the file names do not contain the names of the songs. They're random hexadecimal numbers. Well, they're not random, but they look like random hexadecimal numbers. You have to match them up to the index of file name and then the name of the song and all that stuff. And so these programs will do that all for you. And they're really good. You said you're on a Mac?
Pardon?
You said you're on a Mac?
I have a Mac, yes.
Yeah, actually, Synuity is a Mac program, so that they have Windows and Mac, so that will do it. There are other programs as well that will do it. It's not an uncommon problem. I guess iTunes doesn't. I thought iTunes it would do. I've seen this. You have program music. You don't. Would you like me to transfer it? But I guess if it's not doing that, well, then you have to go to a third party, and this all is anti-piracy junk. Not good for anybody. Thanks to Kim Schaffer, our phone angel, for answering the calls. Thanks to Big Pee-wee, our musical director. Thanks especially to you for joining me. I'm Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. That's it for today. Have a great Geek Week. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, TWIT, T-W-I-T. It stands for This Week in Tech, and you'll find it at twit.tv, including the podcasts for this show. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on Mac Break Weekly, iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches on iOS Today, security on Security Now. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And, of course, the big show every Sunday afternoon, This Week in Tech. You'll find it all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next week with another great Tech Guys show. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.